Hello, welcome to the Eclectic Reader. Listen to great books and stories while you use your eyes and hands for other things. Now here's your host, Madison Mason.
Hi, Madison Mason here. Thanks for coming back. Thanks for your loyalty. Welcome to Chapter 40 of The Grey Quarry Boys. The Grey Quarry Boys, Chapter 40, The Plan. Todd Kyle was in the ninth grade at Grey Quarry Junior High, and not much different from the other guys, with the exception that Todd was marked. There are such people. And alert beings, human or otherwise, feel it when they are in the presence of these. Dogs and horses know it. People sense it too, if they're evolved. Some can recognize the special ones if they ever let go of their own egocentric fascinations long enough to observe with objective sensibility, or their sixth sense, as some call it. It's cool lately to refer to these special ones like Todd as aliens, like they're from outer space, which isn't the case. They're just special. Could be people like Todd are old souls on their last trek through our reality, maybe marked for early death, predestined, foreordained. Often they know it themselves, and it has an effect on the nature of their character. Todd Kyle was born the all-American boy, strong, handsome, and inherently good. His face had a chiseled, heroic quality of perfect, clean proportion. Vivid blue eyes shone like crystals from his face, which bore the color of suntan all year round. A sandy flat top rode his ears, giving him military bearing at odds with his gentle nature. It was as if Todd were sent into this life to do as much good as possible before leaving, so the hole left in life by his early departure would be lined with some healing quality. Unfortunately, this worked in reverse, and when he was taken away, the loss was made more terrible by contrast, and Todd was mourned long and hard by all who had come in contact with him. But that happened much later, and that is another story altogether. Now he's a 14-year-old guy who carries the gleaming milk cans from his barn and hefts them onto the back of the muddy pickup as his dad lashes them to the bed. Todd slammed the tailgate and with rough young hands clamped it shut. Marv pushed the caterpillar cap back on his balding head, exposing a milk-white forehead in shocking contrast to the ruddy burnt sienna of his leathered brow, stressed by endless days and nights of heavy farm work. Marv Kyle was a man of the dirt and animals, a veteran of the big war, a simple, hard-working man, good and uncomplicated, backbone of a nation which he fed as if it were his bounden duty. Farmer's son of a farmer's son of a farmer's son, he had never known anything else. He raised his boy in the same tradition of the land. They had been up since 4 o'clock. The cows were milked, the stock fed, and now Marv would drive the milk to the dairy combine in Jefferson City, 25 miles distant. That's it, Daddy. You do pretty good work for cheap labor, his father grinned, his gold side tooth catching a tiny piece of the bright morning sun. Free labor, you mean? Todd glanced a punch off the powerful arm of his big father. The man sized up his boy through the carved squint of his weathered eyes and liked what he saw. I reckon you get took care of okay. You'll rinse the machine and put everything away? He said rinse like ranch. Yep. The farmer reached out, grabbed his only son around his strong shoulders, and roughed the boy's hair with the other scarred paw, a gesture of familiarity he would never have used had there been the chance of anyone watching. Hey, old man, Todd protested, squirming out of the powerful grip and coming into a boxer's stance, fists at the ready. Oh, what's the matter? His father laughed. Mess up your pretty hair. He grabbed the boy again and rubbed his knuckles across the scalp, administering the old Indian haircut. Todd struggled and pounded his dad on his big, hard farmer's belly, which extended well over the wide leather belt. Marv laughed his husky laugh of the earth. He released Todd and grinned. There, all better. You look real pretty now, he chuckled as Todd landed one more ineffectual punch on the iron gut. I'd do that to you if you had any hair. Todd straightened his flat top to perfection. You got to get bigger than that, his old man laughed as he hauled his weight into the cab and started the truck. See if your mama needs anything done before you take off, all right? Yes, sir, Daddy. You're a good kid. You too. Hey, bring me some comic books, he yelled as the pickup strained up the dusty hill towards the house. His father's faded blue arm raised out of the window and waved assent. Todd Kyle watched the truck disappear over the hill and off down the highway. He walked into the barn and stopped. The new stainless steel milking machine with its gentle suction tubes gleamed in the reflected light. No, he thought, he would wash the machine later. Now wasn't the time. He had to meet the guys pretty soon. He wondered what time it was. Todd was a fine boy, but a boy nonetheless, given to the same curiosity as all boys who reach a certain age. He had a very important appointment in Spring Hollow. 5 miles away, Danny Munson was trembling. He was as scared as he had ever been in his life, but he was sent on a mission just as surely as if he were an international spy, and he could not fail. He couldn't come back empty-handed. They would make his life miserable. Worst of all, tag him with the lowest handle that any guy could ever carry. He would forever be known as Chicken. In a tight little town like Grey Quarry, there's a bond with all the other guys, sacred and inviolable. Your very survival depends on acceptance into a brotherhood. To be tagged with anything other than a name of pride is a curse. Chicken means blood. It means you have to fight anybody who calls you that, no matter who, how big, how tough, or how deadly. Or you are chicken. Danny Munson was no chicken. He stood in the center aisle of Rodney's country store and sweated, staring down toward the front window where the morning sun blazed in, framing Mr. Rodney in dusty light. The store owner made change for a very old colored woman. Her white hair reminded Danny Munson of the folk song they were forced to learn in the 3rd grade about old Black Joe, who had no cotton where the cotton ought to grow. He sensed the moment and pulled his mind quickly back to his task. Before he realized he had actually made a decision, he was at the magazine rack in the back of the store, at the furthest point from Mr. Rodney and stretching high up. Then it was in his grasp. Without looking back, he imagined himself, for that brief moment in crime, to be invisible. With a quick, deft movement, he did the deed and settled from his tiptoes back to the floor. He turned down the aisle, jackhammer heart pounding under a heavy sweater where the sweaty skin of his belly stuck to the cover of the August issue of the stolen Playboy magazine. He pretended to be looking for groceries, but couldn't bend over to pick anything up. The stiff magazine held him like a girdle. So he grabbed a small can of Vienna sausages, pronounced Vienna by the local folk, and headed for the counter. Toward success in crime or entrapment, he didn't know which, because Mr. Rodney's sneaky and notoriously sharp eyes had nabbed many bad boys before. Mr. Rodney was tough on malefactors. It made the challenge of shoplifting all the more tasteful to the local boys, but God help you if you were caught. Danny took a very deep breath, steadied his screaming nerves, and smiled. The can clunked on the counter. "Morning, son. Charge it?" Mr. Rodney muttered and looked under the counter for the credit book, exposing the top of his head where the last few brown hairs had been combed carefully over from the back of his head to give the semblance of hair when he looked in the mirror. But seen from above, it looked like a wet ladder fallen across his head, and if Danny weren't so concentrated on trying not to cry or throw up, he would have laughed. "Yes, sir, please," Danny trembled, controlling his voice. "Vienna sausage, 19 cents. That all?" "Yes, sir." Danny knew he had him now. He was pulling it off. Mr. Rodney eyed him suspiciously with the look grown-ups have when they smell something off but aren't sure. He looked sharply into Danny as the boy opened his own big brown eyes wider and feigned innocence. This one always worked. "Warm today. How come you're wearing a sweater?" I got the flu," he said, in a stroke of desperate genius, and coughed right in the old man's face. A big, loud, fake, wet cough. It did the trick. Mr. Rodney recoiled, covering his mouth with a hairy hand. He was a man who had hair everywhere but on his head. Well, I swanny, don't give it to me, durn it, he blurted from behind his hand. Some Southern people who wouldn't be accused by their more pious brethren of swearing don't swear, they swanny. Take your germs and get out, Munson. Yes, sir. Cautious enough not to run, Danny grabbed the little can and hurried to the door, holding it for the old colored lady. Thank you. You're a good boy. Yes, ma'am. As the lady left, Danny stopped in the doorway, seized by a natural flair for the dramatic, to lean against the jamb and fall into a coughing fit that would have done proud any amateur actress attempting Camille. Close the door and go cough somewhere else, I swanny. Yes, sir. Hook, 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 hook. Playing it to the back road, Danny stumbled, letting the door close slowly behind him, and staggered down the worn stair planks, past the tin knee-high sign by the gas pumps where his bicycle waited in the sun. He only stopped when he felt the purloined magazine being forced out of his belt by the action of his stomach. He might just play it too far. Turning his back to the store, he reached under the sweater and adjusted his contraband, shoved the unneeded can of sausages into his jacket pocket, and mounted the bike.
We hope you have enjoyed this episode of The Eclectic Reader. Please go on to the next numbered episode to continue. Also, check us out on YouTube, Facebook, and Twitter. If you'd like to help support the project, you can donate under Madison Mason at Patreon. And please, check out our website, kltkrdr.com, for more information.
Hi, this is Madison Mason. I want to personally thank you for listening to The Eclectic Reader and invite you to share your experience, your thoughts, and your suggestions. We have many great books lined up for the future, but if you have requests for anything that is in the public domain, please email us at kltkrdr@gmail.com.
kltkrdr@gmail.com